The world is divided into different continents, regions and countries. Presently, there are more than 200 countries situated across the globe. In most of the cases, borders separating these countries are natural features, but there are some instances where just an imaginary line drawn on the map serves as the international boundary. Today, we'll acquaint you with some very interesting and amazing borders drawn between the countries. Let's begin. But before we get started, be sure to smash the like button, subscribe and click the notification bell for more such amazing content. Number 12. The Triple Frontier. It's commonly believed that an international border separates two countries, but due to certain unavoidable reasons, you find boundary lines forming an intersection which separates three or even more states. One such example is found in South American continent called the Triple Frontier, which separates Argentina, Paraguay and Brazil. The exact location of the border intersection is at Iguazu Falls, which is considered to be the largest chain of waterfalls in the world. Based on convenience of movement and crossing, it's a well-known tourist destination. There is a sizable town or city in every country near the border. The main cities in the region are Ciudad del Estado in Paraguay, Porto Iguazu in Argentina and Foz do Iguazu in Brazil. A joint hydropower plant has also been constructed in the area to generate electricity from the falls, which is distributed to all three countries. For marking the exact point where the border of these three countries meet, three similar but prominent features, obelisks, have been erected which are painted in the colours of the respective countries' flags. Number 11. Anon de Velas de la Gomera. Spain has an enclave, namely Anon de Velas de la Gomera, which extends off the coast of Morocco and is linked with the mainland through a short beach. Very limited strength of Spanish military personnel is stationed here, and the place acts as military outpost. It surely holds the record for being the shortest land border between countries all over the world. This strange historical border arrangement came into existence during the late 15th century, when Spain and Portugal reached an agreement. Both states framed parameters to establish respective regions of influence on the North African coasts. Despite consistent objections by the Moroccans, Spain occupied this small island during the early 16th century. Moroccans also resorted to minor incursions and protests to restore the possession, even lately by 2012. Officially, Spain still claims possession of the island, but the situation is not so simple. Rather, it's quite complicated as well as controversial. Spain doesn't have any access to the island from its mainland, as Morocco does not permit any movement through its territory. Therefore, Spanish troops stationed here have to reach there by using helicopters. One may suggest that Spain should give the island back to Morocco, but Spain is not ready to agree, as they claim that the piece of land affords them a strategic position at the North African coast. From this outpost, Spain can monitor activities in the Mediterranean Sea, which definitely is not possible from the European coasts. Number 10. Val Nasso. Generally speaking, anyone residing in a city, town or countryside usually knows clearly about the country where they are residing. But there is a city on the border of Belgium and Netherlands where the situation is enormously complex. The location is known as Val Nasso. Complicated affair is the result of countless treaties and agreements signed between the two countries over the centuries. Consequent to that, a lot of many small pieces of land had changed possession many a time between both neighbours. At present, there are about 22 small enclaves which belong to Belgium, whereas there are several enclaves which are possessed by the Netherlands. These are intertwined and have led to quite complicated and confusing situations. The people residing in or visiting Val Nasso may have to walk through the border of different countries just to reach the adjacent buildings. Next-door neighbours may be having citizenship of completely different states. Even while strolling across a street or a road, technically you might be crossing a border for both countries a number of times. For facilitating the visitors, authorities on both sides have erected iron pins to indicate the extent of the international boundary. Depending on the fact that to which country these belong, houses have different kinds of markings which are augmented by the flag painted on the buildings for clarity. Inhabitants of Val Nasso are quite lucky to be living in countries which are members of the European Union. In case these small pieces of land were regulated by a different set of regulations, life would have been immensely cumbersome. Number 9. Jungholz. Customarily, borders between two countries either run along natural geographical features or are drawn by the cartographers and lawmakers, resultant to intense negotiations between the representatives of different stakeholders. However, it would be surprising to know that trade can also be a reason to demarcate the border. Yes, peculiar situation faced by Austrian town of Jungholz is a special consequence of a business transaction made centuries ago. But the residents of the town still experience a strange anomaly and its effects till today. Jungholz is located in the Austrian state of Tyrol. However, the only place through which this region is really linked with the rest of Austria is through the peak of the Schrog Trough and adjoining mountains. Otherwise, Jungholz is fully surrounded by the German areas. Except for the peak already mentioned, it's really impossible to access the region without passing through German territory. You may be wondering how this happened. In 1342, an Austrian citizen purchased the land from a Bavarian farmer and incorporated it into the rest of his possessions located in the state of Tyrol. In 1844, Germany and Austria signed a treaty which formally declared the land as part of Austria. However, in different ways and rules, the residents have been treated as German citizens. For example, till joining of the European Union by Austria in 1995, German customs authorities used to handle the affairs as the town had no direct access to Austria. Similarly, before the adoption of a single currency, that is, the euro, by the European Union, residents of Jungholz were using German mark instead of Austrian currency, that is, schilling. Delivery of mail is again a complex issue for the residents, as they can either use Austrian postcode or the one of Germany. It has serious implications for the cost of postage depending on where the letter has originated. Number 8. Lake Constance. Lake Constance is situated on the northern foothills of the Alp Mountains. It is actually formed by 3 distinct water bodies which are fed by the River Rhine. Due to its natural location, the Lake Constance forms a natural geographical tri-point border between the 3 adjoining countries, that is, Austria, Switzerland and Germany. The banks of the lake fall within the boundary of respective countries, but the tri-point confluence which demarcates the borders lies at an unspecified point within the lake. So far, all 3 neighbours have not been able to define and agree on the point in the lake where their territories meet. Consequently, it's one of the most vague borders on the globe. Matters are further complicated as all the neighbours have quite divergent ideas regarding how things should be settled. Switzerland claims that the boundary line passes through the centre of the lake. On the other hand, Austria argues that the lake belongs to all 3 countries, a situation termed as a condominium. But the Germans have so far not taken any formal position on the issue. In the modern era, especially when all 3 countries are part of the European Union, this ambiguous arrangement does not have some adverse influence. However, this ambiguity has led to certain problems and inconveniences at certain occasions. For example, which nation possesses rights to fishing in the lake? In the recent past, a family faced an intricate situation related to fishing as they lived on a houseboat and had no means to prove which of the countries they really belonged to. Number 7. Hotel Arbes. In the past, demarcation of borders between countries had been a very contentious issue, especially prior to the formation of international organizations and forums which conduct negotiations and arbitration among the contesting parties. Countries vehemently contested for achieving most suitable and fertile land. Disputes often resulted in incredible outcomes. Such a unique example pertains to what happened between Switzerland and France. Val Nasso, a Swiss region which French wanted to possess and was annexed in 1802 by Napoleon. Region was reduced to Switzerland but again changed hands and became French territory when both contestants agreed to a land swap. The land in question was located just towards the north of the valley, which meant that due to a newly achieved consensus on the boundary, it would bifurcate the French town of Le Coeur. At this juncture, a local businessman decided to obtain advantage of this unique condition. He built a marvelous building spanning both sides of the border. Its grocery was constructed on the Swiss side, whereas the bar was located towards the French side. In due course of time, the building was converted and inaugurated as Hotel Arbes. Since then, technically it's located in both countries, which led to a very conspicuous situation during World War II. When Germany occupied France, the Nazi German troops used to sit on the French side of the hotel, but they could not enter towards the Swiss side of the border. Fortunately, the staircase leading to the top floor terminated in the Swiss territory. Hence, Nazi troops were not permitted to cross over to the Swiss side of the hotel, which resultantly became a very important place to take refuge, especially for French freedom fighters. Even today, the hotel shares land in both countries. You may plan to enjoy a honeymoon by reserving a suite with half the bed in France and the remaining half in Switzerland, as well as several rooms that are technically in both countries. Number 6. Passport Island. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and Bahrain had a long-standing desire to strengthen their relationship by improving links between them. Therefore, in 1981, they initiated construction work on King Fahd Causeway. It is 16 miles long and consists of 5 bridges to connect the neighbouring countries. An expenditure of about $800 million was incurred on account of its construction. In 1986, it was completed and opened for use. Finally, it provided the much-needed crossing point for the freight and passengers to drive between both the brotherly neighbours. For monitoring the traffic passing between the two countries through the crossing, the need for a checkpoint was felt. They did not want the checkpoint to be located in either of the countries. Therefore, both countries agreed to build an artificial island through which the bridges would pass, and the customs offices could be constructed at the island. It's commonly known as Middle Island, or also famous as Passport Island. Its main features include a border station, 2 high towers to be used by the Coast Guards, and 2 restaurant towers having a height of about 213 feet. Half of the island is considered to be part of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, whereas the other half forms part of Bahrain. The island also holds the unique record of having 2 nearest McDonald's restaurants located in 2 different countries, as the company built 2 separate outlets on either side of the island. Number 5. Libya. A unique town named Libya is situated in Catalonia, Spain. As generally believed, a town is surrounded by the areas of the same country, but in the case of Libya, it's wholly surrounded by the southern department of France. It's worth investigating how the unique situation developed. The history of this special enclave can be traced back to more than 1500 years ago. At that time, Libya, which was the capital city of Sardinia, along with other towns of the region, formed part of France. The official land boundary was demarcated between the two countries. Later on, in 1659, efforts were made to address this particular situation through the Treaty of Pyrenees. As per the treaty, all those areas falling in the French territory would be handed over to the French government, except the town of Libya. This anomaly arose due to the provisions of the treaty, which stated that only the villages would be handed over to the French. Libya remained in the possession of the Spanish government as keeping in view its historic significance. It was recognized as an important town of the region. Since the implementation of the Treaty of Pyrenees, at several occasions France laid claim on the town and tried to get its possession, but could not proceed further, as it would have badly affected its diplomatic relations with Spain. In the past, both countries had an agreement which permitted the residents of Libya to travel about 1 mile inside French territory for approaching the town. However, implementation of Schengen Agreement by European Union countries eased the situation for the residents of the town. As the agreement negated requirement of any special arrangement for travelling through the countries which ratified the treaty, therefore it provided freedom of movement to the residents of Libya. Number 4. The Northwest Angle. It would be quite strange to know that the border between a large number of states in USA were drawn by just marking the straight lines on a map. We came across a particular situation on the US-Canada border. In this area, we find a region named as the Northwest Angle, which legally forms part of Minnesota state, but is separated by the Lake of Woods from the rest of the state. Access to the region is possible only first by traveling through Canadian territory and then entering into it. It certainly operates as a US enclave located in the extreme northern areas of 2 contiguous states. We may guess that this specific situation might be the result of efforts by some landlord who petitioned for the border to protect his possession, or the Northwest Angle region has very strategic importance, for which reason America wanted to retain its possession. Nothing of the sort is true. Actually, this anomaly resulted due to misinformation. At the time of border demarcation, President Benjamin Franklin and the British representative depended on the Mitchell map of the area. The map depicted the lake in an oval shape and the water source of the Mississippi River was not marked at all. They wanted to ensure that the water source of the river should be kept in US territory. They supposed the source to be located north of the Northwest Angle. Accordingly, the area was included in USA, without knowing that access to the region was not feasible except by traveling through Canadian territory. This region actually presents a historical anomaly with no means to take remedial measures, especially due to its very sparse population, amounting to only 119 persons. Therefore, the situation doesn't pose many problems. The population has been granted right to pass through Canada on an honour system. Number 3. Boundary Islet. The Australian state of Tasmania is located adjoining to its Victoria state. One may think that there would be no land boundary between the states, but to your utter surprise there is a tiny piece of land measuring just 4.9 acres. It's called Boundary Islet and virtually bifurcated, with upper half located in Victorian side, whereas the lower half forms part of Tasmania. This incredible situation resulted due to sheer misinformation at the time when maps were drawn. Lawmakers who were to decide the border as to where the area of Tasmania began and Victoria ended wanted to draw a boundary line through the base in such a manner that it should not pass through any island. Rather, it should pass through the water. According to the maps available at that time, the latitude of the line was 39 degrees and 12 seconds south. They thought this line would suffice. These maps were incorrect and drawn by Captain John Black back in 1801, who after conducting the survey of the area marked it slightly away to the north than it actually was. If location of the islet was correctly drawn, it would have been completely in the state of Victoria and known as the Northeast Islet. Subsequently, when the anomaly was realized, the islet was divided between the two states. Number 2. Indonesia-Malaysia border. The Indonesia-Malaysia border is a great place. The border of these two Southeastern Asian countries passes through the island of Borneo. What's unique about this border is that it consists of 1,169 miles of land, which are also including maritime boundaries along the length of the Straits of Malacca and Celebes Sea. There are only 3 official land crossing points between these two countries, but both the land and the maritime borders are not strictly monitored, resulting in a lot of undocumented workers crossing from Indonesia to Malaysia. Another interesting point is that even the color of the soil varies depending on which side of the border you are on. Number 1. Kundra Pass. Kundra Pass connects China and Pakistan. It is the highest paved border between two countries in the world, which was constructed in 1982. There existed some comparatively easily accessible passes which could have been used for interstate crossings, but due to security considerations, the Chinese government officials decided to use Kundra Pass, being the safest option. The pass can be accessed from the Chinese side through the China National Highway 314 and is located at a distance of 81 miles from the Chinese city of Tashqargan. On Pakistan's side, it's just 47 miles from Sust, where customs and immigration posts have been made functional. Its past history is mostly covered in snow due to the extreme height. It receives an abundance of snowfall and rarely is used for the movement across the border. Extreme weather conditions force the pass to remain closed for all types of vehicular movement from December to April. The Kundra Pass has attained 2 distinct records in the world. It has the honor to host the highest ATM on the globe. It's also unique as being one of the few places in the world where drivers have to change their driving side on the road. So far, very few haulage companies have established their infrastructures here, as limited capacity of the facility and extreme weather conditions make Kundra Pass comparatively less used border crossing. But still, it remains to be a popular spot for tourists and visitors due to its fascinating scenic views. However, after commencement of work on the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, or the CPEC, things are changing very fast. All those who wish to travel to Kundra Pass must ensure to possess a reliable vehicle worthy of wading through several feet of snow. We hope you guys enjoyed this information-packed account of the world's most interesting borders. Do share your views in the comments. Do click on the like button and subscribe for some more incredible content. See you all next time. Goodbye.